Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Janine Howard, CEO and founder of Profile Magazine, and today I am really excited, Lana, because I've been girl fanning over you guys for quite some time, and with me today I've got one of the three of the birds, Lana from Three Birds Renovations. Welcome.
Thanks, Janine. Yeah, look, trying to get all three of us in the one room at school time, during school hours, like no chance in hell. So it was sort of me or bust.
I'm good with it. I'm good with it because I tell you what, if we had all three of you, I'm sure I probably wouldn't get a word in anyway.
I was going to say that, and even you probably won't, even with me. So you add Bonnie and Erin, it's a host's worst nightmare.
Well, let's dive into that because some people, well, look. If you've been under a rock, you may not have heard about you guys, but for some people who haven't heard about you, who are Three Birds Renovations?
Okay, I'll try and give you the short version. So the short version is that we're best friends, mums, renovation educators now. So we've been friends for coming up to 20 years, I think, which is kind of showing our age. But so the friendship far outlives the business. And so we'd been friends for about 15 years when our youngest kids had gone off to kindergarten. So we were kind of like in that point in our world where you look to reclaim sort of who you are as a woman before you had kids, because you've now got sort of time on your hands when they're at school. So we all hit that stage at the same time and all felt as if we weren't going to get job satisfaction in our current jobs. For me, that was the world of corporate, fast-moving consumer goods. Basically anything you can buy in a Woolworths store. And for Bonnie and Erin, they were working in event management at a football club. They were actually job sharing. So we just decided, I'd already quit my job in search of something more, no idea what that was. Bonnie rang me one day and said, hey, do you want to style or renovate houses with me and Ez? And I said, look, I have no renovating experience, no real sense of style, but I'm in because I'll take anything right now. And we just got together, and from there we decided that we would buy a property and flip it. We thought we'd sort of become little property developers and earn a wage from buying and selling properties. And we did that for the first couple, but then what became clear to us was we started to share our journey on Instagram, mainly as just a way of keeping our friends in touch, friends and family, with what we're doing, because they were like, what are you doing? And then we just heard from so many people who started following us and mums at the school, oh my God, you girls are living the dream. Your best friends, renovating houses, you're your own bosses. This is the Australian dream. And I was like, is it? I rang the girls, we're living the dream. We got to smile more. But really where it's now ended up is from flipping homes, we've started to document our renovations, share our renovations, and now we see ourselves in the space of inspiring and educating women like us how to get their dream home. So we're all about helping you renovate your home and getting the results you want, because we've made lots of mistakes. We still make mistakes. And if you're renovating, it could be your first and last renovation in your lifetime. So we're here to help you.
Oh, I love it. And what I love about that too is, like, so with our magazine, we have a real core message about women doing something that they absolutely love, that gives them flexibility and freedom and more money. And I guess for you girls, you kind of fell into this. Like, you didn't necessarily intend for it to go that way, but it became that, didn't it?
It did. You know, when we started out, it was literally going to be just private, just flip one property and see where it took us. We had no business plan, which, you know, I studied business at uni, and it's sort of weird to start a small business with no business plan, like nothing written down. Sort of, isn't that like 101 of a mistake? But I felt comfortable with it because I was like, hang on, we know nothing about the industry. We don't even know if we're any good. How can you write a robust business plan that's meaningful when you don't know anything? So we just went in with a level of investment that we felt comfortable with. And we knew that with property in the Sydney market back then, you couldn't really stuff it up. Like, you know, you buy the property, you renovate it. It's pretty hard to not be able to sell it for a profit on the other side, particularly back then. So it felt like a low risk approach to me. And now it's just grown into something. And I felt, as a marketeer, which is my background, I felt that all those skills had gone down the toilet and were a waste because I was now a renovator. But all of a sudden, this little beautiful brand started to grow, and I started to feel at home and like I've got something to do where it's just a beautiful product. And where Three Birds has ended up for me is the absolute ultimate brand I could ever want to work on in my life. And I happen to be a co-founder with Bonnie and Erin.
Wow. Like, I just got goosebumps off that, because
Yeah, me too.
like your brand is just, there's something about it that's, number one, really quite magical, but number two, very, very down to earth. Right.
Yeah, I mean, when we meet people, you know, at home shows or whatever, a lot of the people we meet and chat, they go, "You're so real." Real is the word that we keep hearing. And the thing is, we are the mums next door, talking to the mums next door. And we always want to keep it that way. There's no sense of celebrity within us whatsoever, but we know we've got a large following. We know we've got a great influence, and we take that really seriously. But we are literally the mums next door who can swear like a trooper at times and have a chaotic life and have all the same issues that everyone else does.
Well, I will say that the brand has got a very good following. I think you've got something like 475,000 on Instagram.
Yeah, we do. That's just wonderful. And we've got 100,000 on Facebook and 100,000 on YouTube. We reach really over sort of 2 million women, mainly women, a month across our various platforms and our website. And it's just so wonderful for us, because the more people we can reach, the more people we can help. And again, when we meet people in real life, they have so many stories of, "I copied this from you and I did that," or "You gave me confidence to tell a tradesperson, that's not what I want. I want this." And when we hear that, we just go, yes, because renovating and getting your dream home can be an extremely stressful process and with very disappointing outcomes. And a lot of money is often involved. And so it's so important that we can try and make it the best possible experience for people, coming in on budget with a good experience with your tradespeople, and at the end of the day, getting the result you want, and not looking at the kitchen and going, "That's not what I imagined, and I've just paid 60 grand for it, and it's not even what I want." That's the double whammy.
And so tell me about, I want to go back to the business side of things, because a lot of our followers have built their own businesses, or they're inspired to build their own business. Tell us a little bit about how the brand grew, because I'm sure you're going to say there's one part that just organically happened, but there's another part that was strategic. Is that true? Is there a mix of both of those?
Definitely a mix of organic and strategy. Like I said, we did not have a business plan to begin with, and not for the first year, I think. And for me, that was perfect, because as a marketeer, it meant we could shape the brand off the organic consumer feedback, which is just ideal, because then you know you're onto a winner, because you're basically shaping the brand reactively, which means you're giving people what they want. And so there was a lot of organic growth where we realized people just want more of the journey. They want more inspo shots. They want more how-tos, and they want more houses. So that just started to push us in a direction where we had to strategically work out, how do we give them the content they want with the most number of houses, with just the three of us. And I mean, the reality was we couldn't do that all alone. And then we had to start employing staff to help us, and bring in a boss, like a CEO, who is amazing. She keeps it all together. We wouldn't have survived this long without a CEO. 2 years ago, we brought her in, and she is just the best, because with three equal co-founders, there is no boss. And with no boss, I don't think any business is going to last, because you need someone to pull you back on track and have the final say. And that's what our CEO Candace does. And so now it's all very strategic. We have a very long plan of what houses we're doing when, what type of styles we're going to be showcasing people, and particularly around our education platforms, which is our online reno school. We are thinking very hard about what the evolution of that reno school is, what other knowledge gaps there are with our audience, where they're like, "We want you to show us more of this," and we know we haven't done that. So it is a complete mixture of art and science, and organic activities and strategic planning. And it's a beast. There's 12 of us at Three Birds. And it is a beast, and it is hard work, and it's not all daisies, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. It's really hard work, and everyone who works there knows, oh, wow, this is intense.
And I love that that's a point that you made, that for you to really grow, you actually had to get the CEO in there, and that you actually have 12 people in the company now. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize about business, is that it takes a really big team for you guys to be able to show up and do what you need to do.
It does, because, you know, we could have kept it with the three of us, but this is what was going to happen. And trust me, it's a lot cheaper to keep it with the three of you, you know, the overheads and your payroll when you have 12 people, OMG. But if we kept it with the three of us, we were going to burn ourselves out. We were probably going to fight ourselves into the ground. We were not going to produce great results, because we were going to be pulled from pillar to post. And while we're trying to video this, we're running around doing that. Whereas now we can have some people help run around, so we can focus on the content creation, which is what our audience is asking for, and what our purpose is, which is to help others. And we can't deliver on our brand purpose and our company purpose if it was just the three of us, and it would have killed us. And to be honest, at that stage in our lives where it was post kids, even though Bonnie then pumped out a fourth unexpectedly, that was not in the business plan at all. Yeah, it just meant that we could get where we needed to get to through having that help, because why would we want to have created our own business and then not enjoy it? And it is very hard work. So we also thought we were going to have a better work-life balance, which is just really a bit crazy. I mean, anyone who has their own business, that's not true. But at least we're working for ourselves. We work on our own terms, and we work harder than we ever have before, but we still make school pickup if we need to. We can do those things. I work from home. You know, I'm at home today. I do a lot of work from home, and that suits me to a T. And I love working very hard anyway. And so I'm very lucky in what we've built.
So talking about how you guys work, so I can imagine renovating the houses as only one component. Then there's, when you're not renovating a house, there's a whole heap of business to do as well. So how does that all flow for you?
Well, you know, when we first started out, we didn't have any specific roles. We were just the three of us doing all the same work, pretty much. But very quickly we realized Bonnie is our designer. And I didn't even know if she was any good, honestly, but she's fabulous. And wow, struck gold there. She has got it in her veins, in her blood, in her family. It's her. And Erin is a natural project manager. She loves a spreadsheet. Not many people do, certainly not Bonnie. She loves dealing with tradespeople, getting them there on time. She loves managing a budget. I like doing that too. And so when we started out, I really had no role. I was like twiddling my thumbs. But then the marketing side came in. So now we really stick to our lanes. Bonnie does all the design work. Erin makes the renovation happen. And I make sure we're marketing it in the way our audience wants it, with longer episodes they want. Here's your longer episode. More how-tos. Here's your how-tos. A reno school. Here it is. A book. Here we go. I do that. And so we have our three separate areas, and we have staff under each pillar. And to be honest, we often have a few projects on the go all at once, and they're all at different stages. So we can be designing a future project in the morning, then we can go and film the framework going up at another project in the middle of the day, and then in the afternoon go to a photo shoot at a project we've just finished, and we're putting, you know, we're out the front door and we're saying it's finished, and then I'm releasing an episode that night. So we have projects at all different stages of the life cycle, and we're run off our feet with that, because you can imagine they all back into one another, and there's a lot going on. Like this morning, I've come from filming a kitchen renovation. Bonnie was there in the morning. We tagged her out. She went to style a Christmas shoot while I finished off painting the chair, and Erin's not here. She was overseas right now. So it's just organized chaos.
Wow. Wow. I love seeing that behind the scenes of how business runs, because again, people have no concept of what happens. You know, you girls just show up looking super gorgeous, sometimes with paint all over you, for your videos and your photo shoots and so forth. But there is such a business science behind it. And I'm guessing that because you started around 2014, is that right?
Yeah, so 5 years ago.
5 years ago. So I guess you probably never envisaged how big it would get. So could you tell us, you don't have to tell us figures, but how big is the company in terms of its impact, you know, we know what your social media following is, all of that. I mean, you don't have to divulge your revenue, but I'd love to show people that you can start from not having a business plan to 5 years later having your kind of success.
Yeah, well, that's certainly where it started. We never ever envisaged this size of company. I mean, we probably did after a couple of years in. I was envisaging it probably first, because that's what I bring to the company, is sort of that big picture, that big craziness, where I think I said to Erin one day, we'll have a book, we'll have this, we'll have that. She's like, what? And she looked at Bonnie like, who is this? But it's gone there. It's absolutely gone there. And look, I mean, yeah, the girls would kill me if I divulge figures, and they get very nervous when I do interviews alone, because I can just say anything. But you can imagine that with 12 staff, that's a significant payroll we have to cover just to break even. And that's before we take home, you know, any money. And there was a lot of lean years there where we weren't earning anything like what we were before we left our jobs beforehand. And that's okay. We also weren't in the red for very long, because it was property. You kind of got your profit back really quickly. And so we were never significantly out of pocket for a long period of time, although we had massive loans to pay back, and we've been doing that. But, you know, the business, I'd say 5 years in, we are now where we want to be. Or not where we want to be. We're now satisfied, but we certainly haven't explored our full potential. And I think for me, I often share with the girls, you know, I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but I don't fear failure either. I fear us not trying and not fulfilling our potential. I don't exactly know, that potential might only be a little bit more money than we earn now. That potential might be quadruple. Either one I'm happy with, if I just know we've maxed it out. I just want to know we have maxed it out, and I know we haven't, because we've still got so many ideas that we haven't shared with anybody, and we're trying to work out which one to do first. So yeah, it took a while, 5 years, but we are on the right path.
Amazing. So from the outside looking in, you know, it seems like it's really well run. Seems like it's all great now. Is there any times we've just gone, oh my God, what are we doing?
Yeah, look, for sure. I know that I often say to the girls, I've said it for years, I wish there was a show behind the show, in that the cameras were rolling 24/7 like an true Hollywood story. And of course they roll their eyes when I say that, like, oh my God, Lana, who do you think we are, as if we're having an true Hollywood story? But I know it would be so interesting, because you get to really see the lows where we don't necessarily hide them from the cameras. It's just the cameras aren't there during that moment, because they might happen when we're not on a renovating site. We're in the office, or often when we're in the car, and we're all on conference call together, and we're talking about things. You know, one of the reasons, Janine, I was a fraction late to start this, was Bonnie and Erin and Candice, our CEO, we were all on a conference call talking about a really important issue. And I had to eventually say, girls, I have to cut it short, I'm sorry. But there are definitely times where the business is under pressure in terms of the relationship, and we need to nut it out. You know, one example was when we were flipping properties and putting them on the market for sale. Bonnie had a strong opinion on how we should sell the property. You know, auction or private sale, what should be the reserve price, what offers should we accept, that type of thing. Erin and I had the approach of, we'll just do whatever the real estate agent says. We don't know any better. But Bonnie felt she had value to add to that real estate agent. So she had one opinion, we had another. There was, I think, a time where one of our properties passed in at auction. I didn't think that was failure. I thought, well, who are all those idiots who didn't want to buy this property? Bonnie was in the fetal position, rocking in the corner, and was upset, and there was anger and upset between us, and even her probably feeling like, well, Lana, why didn't you feel the way I responded? Why do you think this is okay? And we realized we're all very different people, very different. And what we worked out was, well, let's take away this source of friction of working out together how we sell a property. Let's just pull a name out of a hat, and whoever pulls that name out is in charge of selling the property without consultation with us, and we high five no matter the results. So we did that for one house. My name came out of the hat, and I think it wasn't one of our best results. And there was no friction at the time, but I could tell afterwards, Bonnie was probably like, I might not have done it like that. So then Erin and I had an epiphany. Babe, if you think that's your strength, here you go. It's all yours. We don't need to add value to that. So we all of a sudden realized Bonnie was really passionate about it. We actually weren't. So rather than all of us having to do everything in agreement or randomly, let's give it to the person that really is passionate about it. And then she's only got herself to blame if it doesn't go well, you know?
Amazing. I love that, because that's, I mean, look, I've been in partnerships before. I know many people try it with friends. It seems easy, and then it can really go pear-shaped. So, you know, I love that it's just staying in each of your lane and respecting that everyone is quite different and has their own lanes. And you can tell that when you're watching your shows. You know, you can really tell that each of you have just decided to trust the other person in that role. So I love that.
And I think we've got, each of us have pretty thick skin. And Bonnie often says it's like we're sort of sisters. And we can usually be pretty honest with each other and say, like, no, that's not going to work, or I don't like that, or Bonnie, you know, you've got to get your grey roots done. And she'll say, Lana, you've got no idea. And she'll say that on YouTube, and all these international people who watch the YouTube show say, Bonnie, that's so nasty to Lana. Don't do that. And I have to jump on and say, guys, that's our friendship. That's true friendship, is how we talk to each other, is paying each other out and making it a joke about each other. You know, sort of self-deprecating and deprecating between the three of us is how we roll. And I think it keeps it light and it works. And bringing in a CEO is the other circuit breaker, because it's hard when you're friends and business partners, if there's some really serious conversations going on, I don't know, about money or things which you just prefer not to have to go to town on as a chat. It would be great for the CEO to be able to have that chat, or initiate it, or at least facilitate it, rather than the three of us perhaps being, I don't know, highly emotional that day about something and it not being as measured as a CEO would help that conversation be. So for me, a piece of advice for anyone who is growing a business, and perhaps it's more than just yourself, even if it is just yourself, but probably if you've got lots of stakeholders, you need a boss, and picking the right CEO will be the difference between your business surviving or your business folding. Yeah.
That's a really powerful point, because so many, like in my world, so many women go into business for themselves and they think that they have to be everything. You know, the CEO, they're the marketing manager, they're also the content manager. And it's really like you're just literally being stretched in all different ways. So thinking about that then, if you were to do it again, would you have started differently?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it was the perfect start for us because it had no pressure, you know, and I loved that we had no business plan, because it meant we would drive the business where the tide was taking us, where the flow of the river was going. And we could never predict the flow of the river until we jumped in the water. And so for me, that was the right thing. And we didn't overextend our risk because it was in property. I've always said to the girls, the risk, you know, we had to take out almost $500,000 loans each, right? Because you had to buy a property was about $1 million. I think our first one was 900 grand. Then you got to spend 100 grand renovating it. So we needed $1 million between three of us. So I think we all brought, you know, $333,000 each to the table as a home loan, mortgaged against our own properties. But we always knew we could get that back when we sold the property and clear the decks and go, okay, do we want to do it again? And so it was the right start with limited risk. And what I was going to say was, it's not as if we bought $1 million worth of bikinis we've made in China. We shipped them in and then realized we can't sell them because our design's shit or they don't fit. And we've got a warehouse filled with bikinis that you can't sell to anyone. A property, you can pretty much get your money back unless it burns down without being insured. So for me, it was a beautiful start, low risk, finding our feet. It wasn't a public start, it was a soft launch. You know, we did it privately because we never actually anticipated having a public profile. And I think we found our feet with our first 5 properties, flipping them. And I think it was, we started to share it mostly in house number 3. But the first 2 houses, we were finding our feet, and that just worked. And I believe it's the reason the brand is what it is today is because of how we started.
Yeah, awesome. And you're up to house 11, is that right?
Yeah, well, we've just revealed house 11, just finished that the other day. That was our Cullamy Hamptons home.
I
which
love
we
that.
love. And oh, and it's hard, I always say we're only as good as our last property. And then we look at our last property and we say, well, how do we do better than that? But somehow every property has a different challenge, a different footprint, and something different we can do. And we consistently managed to produce something that everyone loves. And a lot of people have said that this latest house, House 11, is their favorite. Now the pressure's on House 12, which is already under construction, like I said, and we're also working on House 13, and we also have House 14 in the pipeline, and that's a really exciting nuance on what we do. So yeah, lots of things on the move.
And so just some of my last questions are, like, people always want to know, like, how do you choose the houses? I know that some of yours were your forever homes, but how do you choose what you're going to invest in?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first 5 properties we bought, and we owned them as a company, and then sold them. And we were looking for the perfect fixer-upper in those instances, with good bones and a footprint that was there or thereabouts already good enough that we could flip really quickly. Because the longer you hold a property, the more exposed you are to market changes, where the market could slump and you're like, shivers, I bought at a high and I'm selling at a low. The quicker you renovate, the less chance that is of happening, and the less interest you pay on a loan. So for those, we'd look for sort of quick turnarounds. Then we got to our forever homes like mine and Bonnie's, where it just was the opportunity where we were going to do those homes with or without Three Birds. So like, well, we should share that with everyone so that everyone knows what we put in our own homes. Then after that, it costs a lot of money to go and buy a property and renovate it. So we're like, rather than going and putting $1 million into buying a property, there are lots of properties around us and of people we know where they'd say, could you do it for me? And so we're like, well, yeah. So we then said, well, you got to give us your budget, give us your keys, and give us your creative control. And if you're willing to do that, then you're the property for us. And that's sort of a key criteria we look for now. And also a style that, we've got to see the potential. Bonnie will play a huge role in looking at a property and envisioning what it could become, and working out, is that fresh? Is that something I can do with? Am I going to show a great transformation or not? And that's how we judge the property. And look, at the moment, if it's been with someone that's sort of 2 degrees of separation, who we kind of know through a friend, that's a bit of a safety blanket for us. But we've just started, I think it was last week, we did a call out to our audience where we said, hey guys, we're going to officially now look at your properties, and that might become a Three Birds property. And so we got like 400 submissions in 48 hours that we're looking through, and there are so many great projects. It's just working out what's the right one, and also looking at the duration of a project. We might want to do a little few months project because we know we've got a long build coming. So it really depends on our scheduling, the location of it. The further away it is, the harder it is for us to execute well. There's lots of criteria.
And so for people listening who are in awe of Three Birds and what you guys have created, could you do a little wrap up of what your, I guess, business tips are for especially women going out on their own?
Okay, yeah, business tips. So first of all, I would say that if you can do it with somebody else, that would be great, because it's lovely to share the burden. And by that, I mean the financial burden, the emotional burden, the physical burden of actual doing work. You've got twice the set of hands, or in our case, we had 3 times. So I think if you can possibly share it with someone, that would be great, but they have to be the right person or the right people who have the shared values and the shared vision. You don't want one of you that wants to go to the moon and back and the other person just wants to go to the corner of the road and back. You've got to get that right. I think, not necessarily thinking you have to have a complete solid business plan before you get going, because really, unless it's an industry you've worked in forever and you know it inside and out, and now you're just going out on your own, unless it's that, there's so much learning you've got to do. You've got to be flexible and dynamic and able to change as you learn things. Don't overstretch yourself from an investment perspective. At the end of the day, if you've overstretched yourself financially, that could put a pretty big dark cloud over the experience and the journey. So it's trying to find a way that doesn't overextend yourself. And that might be sharing the burden with someone else, having the loan geared in a way where it's not too much for you to handle, or having a get out way where you can give the products back and, I don't know, get your money back, a bit like us with the house. So just being careful of, don't necessarily go all in, although people like Richard Branson, I'm sure, went all in. And he often talks about he had a knock at the door from the bank basically saying, we're going to repossess your house, and then he hit the big time. So there are those stories out there, but in my opinion, I don't know, everyone wants to go there. That's a big roll of the dice. And what else? Well, I think it's just really knowing and learning about what you want your brand or your company to offer to whoever is receiving what you're selling, be it a service or a good or whatever. Just starting to, once you start to understand it, we have lots of documents written down now about who Three Birds Renovations are, what we are and what we aren't. You know, it's interesting you mentioned magic, Janine. You know, magic is a word that features in our documents, you know, having magic dust, and it just feels magical, doesn't it? So I think that writing down as you learn what you want your brand to be or company to be and what it isn't, and how it's different to your competitors in the marketplace is really important. And listening to your audience or your consumers or whoever's buying your product, really listen to them and really think about what do they want, not necessarily what you think they want. Yeah, and that's just something.
Beautiful. Well, I think it's well said, and that really wraps up our interview today, because I love that we've taken an angle today that's really about the business behind it. We haven't even talked about a door handle.
Which white to use? Where is that question, Janine? It's the number one question.
I did buy Dulux white on white the other day, because I was like, those girls love white on white.
Well, can I just give you a tip, Janine, on white while we're here on Dulux? It's really important with white on white and any white. Our number one tip is paint every surface in the same white. So that's your wall, your trims, skirting board, architrave, doors, cornice and ceiling in white on white. Because if you only paint the walls in white on white and the trims in something else, you're going to highlight the subtle undertone differences in different whites. Then you're going to tell me, Lana, it's come out blue. And I'm going to say, no, it's just you need to paint the other surfaces.
All right.
Okay.
Roger that. White on white all over. I'm happy with white on white all over. Is that white on white behind your wall?
Actually, no, I did lexicon half. This was before we discovered Dulux white on white. We just went with the classic lexicon half. But I think that wall hanging behind you is like one I've got in my hallway. That is gorgeous. I've got one very similar.
Thank you. That's a little Bali wall hanging. There's a matching one over there.
Oh, I mean, I don't know if that's your home office, Janine, but this is my home office. And there's another tip is, if you've got a home office, don't put it in a back, dark, dingy room, because that's traditionally where a study is supposed to go. I put my home office in the best seat in the house. I'm seeing out a huge window here, trees here, and I've got my picture of Santorini behind me to make me feel like I'm working from Santorini. And so make sure your home office is an inspiring, light, bright place.
Awesome. And we spend so much time in here, so that's really valuable advice.
Exactly.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, and I'm sure I'll be on YouTube tonight. When I'm lying in bed, sometimes 2:30 in the morning, I'm watching your episodes.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's great. You and my mum are doing the same thing.
It's what we mums do. So yeah, pleasure talking to you, Lana, and give my love to the other girls. And yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Janine. See you later.